My biggest thing is hope. Keep the faith, even though it's dark and you can't see. For us, she came back. I don't think that's going to happen for everyone. I don't think everyone's going to get a miracle. But how would you know if you don't keep trying?
Welcome, everybody, to the Warrior Podcast. Today I have one of my dearest friends. She's had an exciting life. She's a musician, but in particular, she's an awesome singer. She likes to use the gift of her voice to shed some light in the world. I've seen her perform at retirement homes and children's hospitals. She's got an amazing voice. She's a lover of the outdoors. I would say a survivalist. She can live out in the woods by herself with just a book of matches. She's the caretaker of her mother. She has a very interesting story about her mother, and it prompted her to write a book, which is soon to be published. And the book is called Do You Believe in Miracles? And it chronicles her and her mother's journey from darkness into light. And when I say darkness, I mean, a few days possibly to live to all of a sudden, poof. And we're going to talk about that story too. And with that said, welcome my dear friend, Rikki Neyer. I've been wanting to get you on for a long time. I just want to say to the audience how we first met. You came in as a real estate referral from an agent who worked in the city. And she said, I have some friends. You work in the suburbs. And I met you and Josh at the first house showing. And then everything blossomed from there. So it was cool. You're not only a friend, you're one of my best clients. So, so welcome.
Thank you.
So what I like to do is we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of the story of your book and everything. But tell me a little bit about your beginnings. How did you get into music? Tell me a little bit about that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
I love all your podcast shows. I listen to them all. I raised up in the south side of Chicago, and I'm the oldest of 5 girls.
Oh, boy.
Yes, no boys. Well, we had a boy dog, and my dad didn't go crazy because he had his boy dog. But yeah, they wanted a boy. I'm pretty sure that's why my mom named me Rikki, but what are you going to do? I don't know why. But anyway, I was a tomboy, if you will. I was very adventurous. I would say that we were probably one of the last generation of kids who got to play outside, before internet took over. And we would go camping and fishing, and we lived across the street from a park, from a grade school, and we would go outside and play, and it was our playground. We'd go back home when my mom and dad would whistle, if not when the street lights came on.
Yep, that's old school. Can I ask you where on the south side?
Yeah, Brighton Park.
Okay,
Brighton Park
what
area.
would be the streets, like the main intersections? I'm not exactly sure where that is at.
Yeah, so around Archer and Kedzie.
Okay.
I went to Curie High School,
Okay.
Archer and Pulaski. I took the CTA, I took the Chicago train and the Chicago public system, the bus to school. And I would take the bus to the Archer bus all the way to the city, Chicago, so I could take voice lessons. And I got around in the city.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they never lived in a big city. And when you use public transportation, it's a whole different experience.
Yes.
You got to know where to get your transfer and get one bus to the next bus. You got to know how to do all that stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yes. It gave me a chance to see the city, and really get the culture. But yeah, we grew up in a neighborhood. There were a lot of gangs and stuff like that. We lost a friend. He was sitting on his couch. He was shot from a stray bullet and killed. That was our childhood. The gangbangers would tell us, like, hey, there's going to be, a shootout or something's going to happen. Go home and get down. And then we would go home and we'd say, okay, we got to get down. And the shooting would happen. And, everybody always had stray bullets in their windows.
Crazy.
And we would be like, okay, it's over. Let's go back out and play. And we played. We played hard. We would play tag, TV tag, hide and seek, climb trees.
Did you ever do kick the can? We used to love kick the can. You know what that is?
No.
It's like a hide and seek game, but you have a can and you set it up somewhere in the alley. And when you find people, they have to go to where the can is. So they're in prison. And then somebody's got to sneak to the can without being seen, and they tap the can. Everybody gets free. It's a silly little. I'm a little bit older than you, so maybe that game died out prior to you.
Yeah, I never heard of kick the can, but I heard of kick the bucket.
So I got to ask, with 5 girls, like, how many bathrooms did you have?
We had one.
Oh my God.
One bathroom and a drain full of hair. Yeah.
So your mom, what were some of the things she cooked for such a big crew?
Well, I'm ashamed to say it because I hate hot dogs, but my favorite childhood food was macaroni, cheese, peas, and hot dogs. And we just loved it.
All mixed together?
Yes, all mixed together. And we just loved it so much. My dad, he had a Polish family, and his Polish family cooked a lot of Polish food. So we were always eating Polish food, which was a big part of my childhood.
So tell me about getting into music and stuff. Were you good in school? And then got an interest in music? I know a little bit about your story, but I want you to tell it, especially with the singing.
Yeah, I actually came out of the womb singing. I've been singing since I was 2 years old. My sister was being delivered. My mom gave birth to her 2 years after I was born. And my sister was coming home from the hospital for her first time. And I had my little cassette tape player. And I was working on the song from Whitney Houston, Saving All My Love for You. And I just wanted to sing that for my new sister, my new best friend. And I actually sang that for her, the whole song, when she came home. And it was my first concert I ever gave.
Awesome.
And I never stopped singing since. When I was in grade school, all the way up until high school, I would go around the neighborhood and I would sing for all the elders. I would, since I was single digits, I would go to the elders' houses. I would knock on their doors and they would open it up and I would start singing. And they would be like, where's your parents? Where's your family? And who are you? And I would just sing for them and they would love it. And they would give me cookies and tell me all their stories. And they would listen to me sing. And I would just, because I had to sing, I couldn't hold it in. And they would listen. So I would just find anyone who would listen. I'd go to all the old people's houses in the neighborhood.
And no fear, right?
No, because they were so old and they didn't judge me, you know? It wasn't like I was singing for my age at school or anything like that. I did sing for my first concert at school, for the whole school, when I was in 3rd grade. And my chorus music teacher, who I'm still very close to.
Oh, wow.
Yes. He saw a light and put me on the stage. So I sang from 3rd grade all the way till 8th grade, graduation, there at the elementary school. But yeah, so that, was my upbringing, singing, listening to music, and Whitney Houston. She was my biggest inspiration.
Well, and what a voice.
And Barbara Streisand, I gotta say.
Yeah. During the start to 8th grade, were you into school at all? Were you a good student or?
No, I was a terrible student. I was an artist, I was a clown. I was a class clown. I had checks on every, my report card for...
Checks are bad.
Yeah, checks are bad. I would get checks for self-control. I always had a check for self-control. And I just always wanted to make people laugh.
And what about your sisters? Are you staying close with them as you're growing up? Or sometimes there's an age gap between first and last and you don't really, there's not too much there.
Yeah, my first 3 sisters, I'd say the first 3 of the 5, we were all pretty close because our age, we're all, within 2 to 3 years apart from each other. I'd say it was pretty divided with the top 3 and then the bottom 3. They were closer and then we were closer. And my mom and dad built us triple bunk beds. So I was on the bottom, my sister was in the middle, and my other sister was on the top. And we were very close. And I would say that we're all still pretty close now to this day.
That's really cool. My boys are all adults, and I've seen plenty of siblings that they don't stay together. And it's important to me that they do.
Sure.
So,
the last two sisters were not very close, but we're cordial, I guess you could say.
well, it's better than not liking each other.
Sure.
So cordial is good. Hey, everybody, I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsors. My dear friend Andy Thompson is the owner and operator of Talon Studios. Talon Studios makes custom knives. This is one of the first knives he made it for me. It's extremely sharp. Everything is made by hand. The handles, the grips, everything. They're beautiful, durable knives. We like to say knives for life. Whether you're a collector or you want knives for utility and function, he even makes the casings for the knives by hand too. Andy works with his son AJ. They are super fine craftsmen, and every knife they put everything, all their heart and soul into their knives. So that's Talon Studios. I will put a link in the description of each of the podcasts, and you'll see their information at the end. What about high school now?
I went to an art school. And
which one was that?
It was at Curie High School there in the city. I took the train. I would take the bus to get there. It was an amazing experience. There were so many people of all different parts of the world, and everybody had some kind of art. And for me, it was in music, and I was in the gospel choir, and I was in the choir of the school, and I did my first opera with Chicago Opera Theater and when I was in a sophomore, junior in high school. And it was pretty intense.
Do you have any nervousness that grew from going, when you're a child, you don't think about things too much and you like to sing, but as you got older and, wiser, did you have any tightness when you were going into singing venues and stuff like that?
Yeah, to this day, I get butterflies, if you will, and my knees will be shaking, my hands will be trembling, and I always get nervous. And then after the first song, I loosen up a little bit, and I see they're not throwing any tomatoes at me. And then I can just continue on singing, and then it's more like, okay, shut this girl up. She's saying enough,
Well, I've seen you in concert, and I couldn't tell there were any nerves, so you do a good job hiding it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you had a big concert on a stage and everything. It was really cool.
Yes, and my knees were trembling the entire time, actually. I didn't loosen up after the first song. But, I sing at assisted livings. And since I was young, I was singing for the elders. And now, for the past 9-10 years, I've been singing at assisted livings and hospice. And they don't judge me. I literally can sing, and they will just accept me no matter what. There's a undeniable amount of suffering that goes on in those places. And there's people who don't remember their own name, but then they can remember the way they feel when they hear the music or when they feel the music. And, fists unclench and shoulders relax. Even if it's just for a moment, it gives me that drive to keep doing it.
Well, I've been in the retirement homes with you when you have been singing.
You have?
I remember you arranged a meeting with podcast with Rosie the Riveter.
Yes, that's right.
I got to interview 100-year-old Rosie the Riveter.
Right. Oh my goodness, I forgot.
Yeah. So I've heard you sing many times. So my focus, I was sitting kind of next to you and looking out into the crowd, and I watched the transformation. Like music really jogs your memory. It pulls you, or puts you back into the past. And you could see that happening to a lot of people. It's transformative. And plus you pick a musical selection, that's appropriate. You don't sing Michael Jackson when the average age of the person in the room is 85, right? You go back and you do some oldies and stuff like that. And it's really cool. Like I believe you're using your gift as a vehicle to shed light. I think you're carrying out God's work with that voice. So.
Thank you. I like to joke about it too. And I say, it's so great because they lock the doors and they can't leave. They have no choice but to
That's
listen
Captive
to me
audience.
sing.
That's right.
And they wear diapers so they can sing for hours at a time. I can sing for hours at a time and they don't even have to, go to the restroom.
That's funny.
You have to joke. because it is really dark. And, the children's hospital said it was so dark. There were times where I would see a child attached to a machine, couldn't live without it, and you sometimes that this could be the last time you see them. I mean, tomorrow's not promised for any of us, so I guess I can say the same thing for myself or for you, but in those places, it's more real, it's more visible.
And don't you, when you go to the children's hospital, sometimes you go in costume?
Oh, yeah. I go in costume, and they just look at me like, so amazed. And when I start singing, they're like, wow, she's real. And then sometimes they'll pick up my dress to look at my shoes, because they're like, is she really her? Does she have the whole setup, or is it just a front? And I go all the way in, I truly believe it in my own mind, and they could feel it.
Oh, that's awesome. So your husband, Josh, told me that you went to a children's hospital and you performed. And then the next time you arranged to do that, it was like standing room only, because the staff and the parents, they knew about you and they all wanted to come. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's just so beautiful. I'll be singing for these people, and then I'm looking down into their eyes, and they have so much innocence and light in their eyes, and they look at me with just so much wonder. And then I look up and I see all their parents crying. And I'm like, don't look at them. I don't want to cry. I have to stay focused. And then I'll look back down into their eyes, and I'll just become in this world with them. And then I get in my car and I cry all the way home.
Yeah.
And I just cry and say, thank you, God, for giving me this opportunity to be that light, even if it's just for a moment. And I volunteer, I do it for free. And people say, you got to get paid for that. I say, I do get paid. It's just so much more than money. And
when we first became friends, I was saying that to you. I'm like, Earl, you could be making a ton of dough right now. You're like, nope, that's not who I am.
And I do in other ways. So I marry people. I sing as the bride walks down the aisle, and then I marry the couple. So it's like from the door closing to the end of the chapter, the assisted livings, to then the beginning of a chapter. So I have a business called Happy Beginnings, because they're starting a whole new journey.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been really nice, because I know that they're starting a chapter and it's going to be something magical. And even if it's not magical or extremely special, like how I imagine it would be, it is for that moment.
Let's go back to the high school days here. You come from 5 girls. You're the oldest. You're sassy and outgoing. You have to be getting the attention of all the boys. How does that work for your mission? Like, were you interested in boys? Did you date? Give me a little overview on that.
That's a good question. I didn't really date. I was always in a long-term relationship. I went from one boyfriend, was with him for quite some time, several years, to then another boyfriend for several years. And I was never really single. I just always had someone to balance me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met Josh when I was 23. And that was 18 years ago.
How old was Josh? Or how many years older?
He's so 10 years. So I was 23.
Wow, cradle robber. Nicely done, Josh.
I was 23 and he was 33. I was just going through a lot in my life at that time. And he showed me unconditional love. And that's a whole nother story. But yeah, he was what I needed at the time when we met.
Yeah, he's one of the most good-hearted, sincerest people I've ever met. There is not one molecule of BS in Josh.
Yeah.
So he was one of my favorite people. So when you said when you were 23, you were going through some stuff, do you want to talk about any of that stuff?
I guess you could just say that would be good for another podcast.
Okay.
Because I do plan on writing another book.
Okay.
Now that I've done this book, which is, thanks to you, by the way, because if you didn't do it and you didn't encourage me to do it, I probably would still be thinking about it. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I did my book because I had a friend say the same thing to me, Tommy Heights. He said, get off your ass and just do it.
Just do it. So I do have another book that I want to write, and that's going to be good for another podcast because it's a whole nother vibe and it's a whole nother part of me that needs to be explored.
And then your love for the outdoors started early, right?
Yeah.
With you said camping and...
I feel like after my mom had her head injury, everything just became that. It was life before and life after.
What happened with your mom? What kind of head injury? What happened there?
Gosh, it was 2017 when my mom had a head injury at her job. And life was never the same after that. She was sent home with staples the same day, and she was not given any pain relief or anything like that. They said, okay, you'll be fine, go home. And she went home, and ever since then, everything's been different, and life was never the same after that. So that was almost 9 years ago, and the past 9 years, I guess you could say, is it's just been living for my mom and just kind of staying afloat.
Tell me about your mom prior to the injury, if you had to summarize like her personality, because I'm guessing she's pretty feisty like you.
Yes. Well, I have to start with she's a redhead.
Okay.
So she is fire. She is different. She is a force to be reckoned with. She makes an appearance. I guess I could go back to when I was young. I remember when I was singing at a pep rally in school, and I was probably a freshman in high school, and she was driving me to the pep rally. They asked me to sing Star Spangled Banner for the school, and she's driving me there, and I'm shaking, I'm crying, Mom, I can't do it. And she's like, she pulls over, she's looking at me like, yes, you can do this. I said, yeah, but I can't sing like Whitney. I can't get it out the way she does. And she said, you just have to sing like you and stop trying to sing like her. You're still developing and you can sound like that later. She told me what I needed to hear. And I went and I sang for the pep rally, and that was just the way she would encourage me. She would show me all different kinds of music. She would have, Vivaldi, classical and rock and roll, Queen. She would just show me that there's so much more to be explored. Don't just settle for one type of music. You could have different kinds of music for each mood, for each day, different times of the day. You listen to different things. But yeah, she was just such a hard worker. She was a decorator. She put up shows for like the car show. She would put up things like that, really big events. And she worked there for 19 and a half years when she had her injury.
What type of family did your mom come from? Did she have siblings too?
She did. Yeah, she does. She's got a whole bunch of sisters and a brother. And they live in the South, Missouri. In Missouri, Branson, near down there. My grandmother was Jehovah's Witness. So my mother was raised Jehovah's Witness.
Did she raise you guys then Jehovah's Witness?
Or? She didn't. She explained to me that her father died when she was 13. And he was on his deathbed, and he received a blood transfusion. And the church disowned him.
That's against the rules for Jehovah's Witness,
yes.
Right? And many other religions too. So
okay, my mom had us, and she wanted us to experience holidays, and she wanted us to pick our own religion. She thought that faith shouldn't be given, it's earned. So she wanted us to explore our own life and figure out life as we go and not be forced. So we didn't really have religion, but my dad, my stepfather, he was Catholic, and my Polish family were Catholic. So we were familiar with that. But of course I explored it a lot. When I was in high school, when I was in grade school, we would, at 2:30, we'd get out of school. And then we would have to go to the Chicago Public Library. We'd stay there until about 5:30, have to be home at 6 o'clock. So while everybody else is dance class, sports, we're at the library exploring forbidden knowledge and books that were not age appropriate, just learning and reading.
So when you're growing up, you're on an exploration with faith, but are you weaving faith and prayer into your daily routines or not so much?
Not really. And I talk about this in the book actually, but yes, we believed in supernatural. We watched witch shows and anything supernatural, werewolf and vampire things like that. We believed that supernatural things happened. I explored all these different religions. I explored Wicca. I explored Native American spirituality, pretty much all of it. And it's pretty crazy to think. And then, of course, I discovered my faith when I was about 29 years old. And I saw some stuff that opened my eyes up.
And with the faith thing is, especially the Christian faith, once you ask, Jesus to come into your life, then you have a whole different sense of clarity. And then you start to see things you didn't see before, and then you see them all the time, right?
Yeah.
You see the signs that we're all part of a divine fabric. That's what I believe anyway.
I don't think I was asking for it, though.
No?
I might have been, but I wasn't physically asking, show me. It wasn't like you, like, show me,
right?
Reveal yourself to me. He revealed himself to me in a way that was undeniable. And it was random.
We're not going to talk about that?
Well, we can, yeah. I was about 29, and I was watching a music video, and I saw witchcraft on the video, and it was some pop music and, mainstream music, and I saw the witchcraft, and I was like, wow. Well, when I was a little kid, we thought we were witches. We thought I didn't believe in God. I believed in the elements, earth, fire, water. And, we thought we were good witches. Like, we could put our intentions into things. And, on full moons, we would chant, the power of 3 will set us free, and, silly things. But we really believed in supernatural things. And we read this book. It was called Out of Darkness and Into the Light. I was probably in 7th or 8th grade. And we would hide this book because we didn't want our parents to find it, because they'd probably take it away from us. And it was a book about this woman who she endured satanic, abusive, ritualistic family. And she was born into this family. They would do terrible, terrible things to her. And while she was enduring these terrible things in her body, she would leave her body and Jesus would be there with her. And she would explain it in her book that she didn't feel the pain, that God took her away. So as we're just little kids reading this, we had no idea. It was probably the first time we ever heard of such a evil existed, and Jesus, So it wasn't until I was 29, I'd say just over 10 years ago, I saw witchcraft in the video, and I saw it and I said, whoa, that's witchcraft. And I said, no way. And I started looking at more videos from the same artist and started exploring, and I saw witchcraft. I was like, whoa, this is not just the witchcraft that I thought. This was devil worship. And I saw that. And then I fell to the ground and I cried a river. And I just put my hands up and I said, God, what have I been doing all this time? I'm so sorry. And I just repented and I gave my life to Christ at that very moment. And I had no idea really what I was doing. I just knew that I was so scared because there was so much evil in the world. So yeah, that happened. And I talk about that book in my book because it's part of the reason why I call my book, Do You Believe in Miracles? Our Journey Out of Darkness and Into the Light. It's part of that because she would go out of her body. And I truly think that's what was happening with my mom.
That's interesting. And then, so you met Josh at 23, and now you're about 29 when this happens. And Josh and you're married at this time, or you're together and committed. Where's Josh? Where are you and Josh in this part of the story in terms of your relationship?
Well, when I met him, I didn't want to get married. And I told him right away, I said, I don't want to get married. And I guess you could say, I just was always ready for something bad to happen. And it took me a while to see how much he truly loved me. I almost felt like if I surrender, if I give in, become vulnerable, then something bad will happen and I'll lose it. So I just always had that guard. And then when I found Christ, I realized it's probably good if we get married. So I finally got there. And the next year, we got married. So, and then of course I got baptized in January, just a few months after giving my life to Christ. I got baptized for my first time. And of course I said to him, well, you should get baptized too. It's great, come on in, the water is great. And he's like, no, I was already baptized when I was a baby because I'm Catholic. And I was like, come on, you have to choose it. And I said, okay, well, you're not ready. And then about 6 months later, he said, he saw my transformation and he said, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to get baptized. And then he stopped swearing. And that was over 10 years ago. And he still doesn't swear. And I swear. And
So
that's
do
been
I.
challenging. But gosh, I have so much respect for him because he's just really, he makes God proud. I know he does. He's just such a good man.
He holds the line, I'll tell you.
Yeah. I like to say I'm married to the Moses of 2026.
That's awesome. And like in my tribute to Dorothy, because she was very Christian and faithful. And I said, I put this in my first book. She's had hardships in her life, me being the worst. And, she put up with my shit, and I wrote that in the book.
Yeah.
So that's something to be said. All right. So where do we want to pick up now?
My mom's suffering. So at the beginning of her injury, she started experiencing extreme light sensitivity and sound sensitivity, just hypersensitive to everything. She was in just so much pain, and she had these terrible migraines that would put her out for 2 to 3 days at a time. And eventually she became suicidal. She wanted to end her pain. So when she went to the hospital, everything after that just became depression. It's just depression, and she just needs counseling. There were doctors that would tell us that she just needs counseling. This is psychiatric. But you see, my mom had this movement disorder where she would violently move shake her head back and forth against her will. And she became rigid, where her hand was so rigid, it would be closed shut, and she couldn't open her hand. She had to have a surgery where her hand was cut open just so it could relieve the strain that was causing her shoulder and her spine. And she had so many symptoms that every time we went to a doctor, they would just look at her and they would feel deeply bad for her because you can see the suffering. And they would say, this is out of my league. I don't know what to do. You should go see this doctor. So the first 4 years, we were just trying to get answers. And we had a neuropsychiatrist tell us, this is for sure psychiatric. This is for sure depression. your mom needs counseling. And I said, well, what about her movement disorder? What about all of these things that just came after her head injury? And she just said, your mom needs counseling. So after that, we just tried to maintain her life. We got her the nurses and the occupational physical speech therapies went to her home because she couldn't go out. It was too overwhelming for her. And for the past 5 years, that's what we've been maintaining, is just trying to keep her afloat without falling deeper into darkness and keep her from killing herself.
With her cognition, I mean, could you have detailed discussions with her? Would she tell you like she was feeling bad or not so much?
That's a good question. She really tried to explain, but you could tell that she just gets so overwhelmed, try to get the words out. She developed this accent that people thought she was off the boat Italian.
Oh, wow.
She has such a strong accent. And I would explain that she's having a hard time getting the words out. It's almost like static. Like she's trying to say it, but it's not coming out the way she wants. And then as a result of that, she would then become more violent in her movement, more agitated. And it was just not, nobody had any answers. Oh gosh, it was just so exhausting. Just watching her night after night. And then of course, I think of God, and I would beg God when my mom would tell me I want to die, I want to end it. And I would beg God, like, God, why are you sitting around? What are you waiting for? And in the end, you can see that God was there the whole time, but you don't really see him. You're looking for the way you want to see him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you're in the water and you're looking for that lifeboat that's beautiful, like a yacht. You don't expect the fishing boat to come and pick you up. We have expectations. We want answers and we want it now. And he didn't do that. He did it in a completely different way than I ever would have expected.
Yeah, so this will tie into where you're going with your story, because I know your story. I always say to myself, you have to be careful what you pray for, because God sees all suffering. And if you're praying for, I hope I get the biggest Christmas bonus, or I hope I win the lottery, I think God looks at that in disfavor. I don't even ask God to, heal anybody, because everything happens in God's time. And I don't want to say anything where I'm begging God to alter his plan. But what I do say is, please ease their suffering, and to all those who are suffering, may they find their strength and peace through you and you. I don't want him, I'm not asking him to change his plan, So, but he will come into this story for sure.
Yeah, it's been challenging.
Were they giving your mother any kind of, well, they obviously were, meds, pain meds? What was she doing?
Yeah, that's pretty much all she had. The problem is what happens is a lot of these psychiatrists, the psychiatrist is the one who should know what she had. It was a movement disorder. So catatonia is a movement disorder. And any movement disorder should be explored. The fact that she was just dismissed as depressed or psychiatric is mind-blowing to me. And I just think of how many other people are misdiagnosed. The fact is, people overlook catatonia, and the psychiatrist would then give them an antipsychotic, which makes them worse.
What is catatonia in your own words?
Gosh, it's a beast. In my own words, it is a very complex. I'm going to start. So in the past 9 years, I've been studying psychology, neurology, and just trying to figure out what's wrong with my mom. And I read the DSM-5, and I learned of catatonia. And when I learned of it, I thought it was just when someone's in a vegetable-like state, they can't communicate. The gamma, GABA, whatever the waves are not in sync with each other. There's a distortion. And I just thought, catatonia is just when you're not responsive. And that's how I learned of catatonia. And when my mom did come back to us in November, I mentioned to the nurse, I said, I think my mom is catatonic. Well, so what happened was my mom was picked up from the hospital on an ambulance. She was picked up and sent to the hospital because her life alert went off, the help I fallen, I can't get up, which if you don't have it and you need it, I highly recommend it because it saved her life. She was unresponsive and she didn't know who she was or where she was. And my mom had already been suffering with major memory issues. She couldn't read, she couldn't write, she didn't know her name. She knew my name, but she couldn't say my sister's name. She would call her my redhead because she couldn't get her name out. We honestly didn't know if she remembered her name. That's how bad it was. But when she came back to us in November, she was gone. She was there, but she was not. And I mentioned to the nurse, I said, can you please tell the doctor that I think she's catatonic? And she said, there's no way your mom would be drooling. So, of course, the first thing I thought was, okay, well, let's dismiss this idea and move on. That's obviously not it. Well, that's what years of dismissal will do to you. And later that night, the psychiatrist from the hospital called and said, at 2:30 in the morning, she's the night shift, and she says to me, what do you think is happening here? Now, my mom's organs were failing. She was gone. My sister and I, we were literally packing up my mom's things because she was not going to be able to live alone anymore. If she didn't make it out of the hospital, she would have to go to a full-time care nursing home. So up until that point, my sister and I had been doing everything we could so my mom can live on her own, so she could have her peace and her, her space and not just feel like a patient. So the psychiatrist said to me, what do you think is happening? And I said to her, I think she's catatonic. And she was quiet for a second. And then she says, but does she have a history of this? I said, no, after her head injury, all of this is new, everything. I said, the fact is, she had pneumonia a couple weeks ago. And I believe that set this off. And she said, I was thinking the same thing, but she didn't know about the pneumonia. And she said, well, if we test for catatonia, it could be very dangerous if she's not catatonic. And at that point, I said, well, can we get an EEG? Let's get a brain scan going. She said, that's a great idea. I'm going to make an order with the neurologist. So, of course, that night, I'm like, okay, she listened. She didn't dismiss me, which has been happening for almost 9 years. And so the next morning, my sister and I, we go to see my mom first thing in the day. And we go and see her. She's got the EEG going. She's got the wires and everything hanging from her head. And she says, she's just gone. She's just there staring into space. My sister and I go next to her. The doctor's recording. The whole thing is on video. He says, go and talk to her so we can see the brain activity. So we're like, hi, Mom, gone. Within a few minutes, the doctor came and injected Ativan into her arm. And then within seconds, maybe 20 seconds, my mom was just in this stupor. She was completely gone.
What is that? Is that a medication she's never had? Or?
Yes, it is, certainly. And when I first heard of it, I was like, oh, what's this going to do? My mom's had hundreds, probably thousands of medications since the head injury. And it was like insulting, like, oh, this is going to help her, And they injected into her arm and life went into her eyes and recognition. She looked at us and she called us out by our names and we both said, Mom, you're here. And And the first thing I thought was, I told my sister, get pictures of your kids so she can tell them that she loves them before she dies or before she's not able to anymore.
So you're thinking this is like one last rally sparked by the shot, right?
100%. That we just got an opportunity for closure. So I wanted her to tell her grandchildren that she loves them so they can always have that. So I told my sister, get the camera out, show her videos or show her pictures, and I'll record her telling them that she loves them. So we did just that. And it was all very overwhelming. My mom just started crying when we said, they love you too. She just had the most exhausted cry I've ever seen. It was just so sad. And later that day, we went back to our house and we're packing. And, we were talking about selling the house with your help, of course. And I got in my car and this song came on, An Ending, a Beginning. It was the first song that came on from Dustin O'Halloran. And I'm like, okay, God, what are you telling me? So that song came on before I went to the hospital. And when I got in the car, it came on again. And it was like God saying, like, remember, that wasn't an accident. I was showing you. So then later on, I go back to the hospital and I brought some Chinese food and I give my mom a fortune. Oh, hold on. I walk into the room and she's sitting up and she's staring at the TV up there on the wall. And my legs gave out. Like I literally couldn't even walk. I was just so shocked by what I was saying. And I go stand up next to her and I was like, well, you look good. And she's like, thanks. And she's got a big smile on her face. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm watching Naked and Afraid. And she's like, there's alligators and crocodiles and hyenas. And she starts laughing so loud. And she's like, they're screwed. But she used the F word.
Okay, got you.
And I was like, what? Like, first of all, she couldn't name animals before that moment. And I was like, well, I'm so shocked and I'm just like completely amazed and awestruck. I said, well, what about your leg? What about your foot? You have to wear a special boot for your foot because it's curving in and you drag your foot when you walk. And, it's like stroke-like symptoms or Parkinson's. And she goes, oh, this one? And she kicks her leg up. And I was like, what? So then she gets up and she walks to the window and then walks back into the bed. And without her walker, which it never has happened. And she sits back on the bed and she picks up both hands, with one hand was paralyzed up until that time. She picks up both hands and she says, praise Jesus. And I said, what? You were Jehovah's Witness, that doesn't make any sense. So then she goes on and tells me that she had a dream and that God spoke to her in this dream. Shall I go on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she said, and I recorded the whole thing because I honestly couldn't believe it. And I felt like everybody else needs to see this because it was just so miraculous. She said, I heard this boom, 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 this thunder sound. And I heard this, I am your father. I am your savior. He said, give me the wheel and you will be redeemed. And he said, follow me. And she said, I will follow you, God. I won't listen to anyone else. And she's crying as she's saying it. She said, I won't listen to anyone else. He said, open your eyes. And she said, and then I opened my eyes and you guys were standing right there.
Holy cow.
And I'm just like, it's just wild. It's so wild. So I recorded the whole thing. We ate the Chinese food and, I don't like stale bread. So I gave her the fortune cookie because it is a dessert. And she opens up the fortune cookie and she pulls out the message. And she said, and, she couldn't read to that moment. So, of course, I wasn't expecting her to read anything. And then she looks at it and says, "You need not worry about your future." And I'm already shocked because she just said that. But then she added, "In bed." I'm like, in bed? I haven't heard that in almost 10 years. You say in bed after every fortune cookie. It's some joke. I don't know who made it up, but I know some people are aware of this. But some people, it's a random thing. Anyhow, she's laughing and I'm like, in bed? That was almost 10 years ago. And I'm like, what year do you think it is? And I told her that Josh and I have been together 18 years. And she said, "You have?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I started showing her pictures. And I showed her a video of her moving violently against her will due to her movement disorder. And I said, "Do you remember this?" And she's like, "No." I said, "You don't remember?" She doesn't remember all of the terrible, terrible things. She remembered her grandkids who were born while she was in her injury. So she remembered them. It's like she remembered the good things, which it's interesting because a couple weeks before my mom had her awakening, my grandmother, my mom's mom, said to me, "Rikki, you need to write a book. You need to tell your mom's story." And at the time, I was like, I don't want to write a book. What am I going to tell people? Another sad story? Who wants to hear that?
This is before your mom came out of it.
Yes,
right?
It was probably a month before. And at the time, I was like, gosh, it's just such a big story, but who wants to hear it? I don't want to live through that sadness, that darkness all over again. And then my mom had her awakening. And when I went back into my car and I heard the ending, a beginning come on again for the second time, I said, "Okay, God, I guess you want me to write a book." And I said, "What do you want me to title it?" And he said, "Do you believe in miracles?" I said, "Oh man, that's been used before. Can I have another one? Something a little more original?" And then he said, "Do you believe in miracles, our journey out of darkness and into the light?" And I just thought, like that book that I read when I was in grade school. And that woman was enduring the most unbelievable amounts of pain a body could endure. And she wasn't in her body. God was with her. So it just makes me wonder, was my mom in her body? Or was she having an out-of-body experience? Because I said, "Do you remember this?" And she has no recollection, as if she wasn't even there. So in the book, I am interviewing my pastor of my church, Pastor Bill. And I also interview my mom's psychiatrist, which he wanted to protect his name. So we just call him Dr. K. And in there, I ask them, where do you think they go during that time? What do you have to say to those families, who are giving up and have nothing but darkness, And I think it's going to be really interesting to hear their answers. And the people are going to want to hear what they have to say. Because it is one big mystery. How can you track a soul?
Well, that's like the out-of-body experiences, the people who are dying or technically dead. So that's interesting that she could have been removed by some divine, God takes you out of your body because your body is suffering and you don't have a recollection, right?
Yeah. And if that's the case, then it would pretty much change the whole thing. Because all this time I was begging God, how could you let her suffer? But then there's like a gentle beauty to it where she really didn't suffer, but we just think she is. So I'm like, okay, God, why did you let me suffer watching her suffer when she really wasn't suffering, but I really was? The caregivers we really do take it. We are the ones who feel it, we witness it, and we become it. And I've just lived in this darkness with her. I felt her pain, and it was just overwhelming. And just take you, all of you. So I would paint. I would put my my pain into music. I would put it into art. I would paint. I would paint my mom in peace. I would paint her surrounded by trees and flowers and color, because I didn't want to accept that this is how it's going to be. I didn't want to accept that this is who she is now. So I painted her, and I made her compilations of pictures into videos, and I put it to beautiful music just so I can show her beauty. And it helped me get through those dark times, turning that pain and sadness into something beautiful, you know. So I talk about that in the book as well. I have a letter to the caregivers, and I use the reference of, when you're on an airplane, they say when the oxygen tanks, or the oxygen comes down, you have to put your mask on yourself before you put it on someone else. And it may seem selfish. It may seem, why would I do that? I got to take care of them. And we ultimately want to take care of, we want to save, we want to cure. And when it comes down to it, we have to take care of ourselves so we can then take care of them.
Amen.
So I really push that. I have a message to the people who want to give up. And I have a message to the ones who love someone who want to give up. And maybe they did give up. It's what I have to say to those people, just to give them some kind of peace in their heart, because it hurts. I talk about the rose and the thorn. You can't want the rose and not respect the thorn. So I talk about all that in the book, and
let me ask you this.
It's just been such a long journey.
Do you think suffering is a blessing?
I think it could be both a blessing and a curse. For whatever reason, she had to endure that pain. For whatever reason, I would always say it's spiritual warfare. It's because of generational curses. Perhaps it was something that her ancestors did, or sin that wasn't paid for, but Jesus paid the price for us all. I would be praying and praying, anointing her, and I'd have friends lay hands over her. I mean, I thought it was for sure a spiritual warfare thing. And perhaps it still is. And some things, I guess, can go unexplained. Just like in the book of Job, he didn't get all of his answers, but he still didn't lose his faith in God. When it came down to it, it was a test of faith for us all. And we never lost our faith, but I showed anger, I showed frustration. I even have a letter to God in my book, kind of a closure for me to say to God, I'm sorry for yelling at you when I did, or doubting your timing. It was a very emotional healing process for me to write it out. The whole book, really. And then I have a letter to my mom, and I have an interview with her from her own words, now that she's back. When she came back, the Ativan, or lorazepam, brought her back just like that, instantly. And she turned out to be allergic to it. She broke out in hives all over her body and became restless. We thought maybe we could give her some other things that would help with the itchiness and help her get through it. We tried. Didn't work. She couldn't take it anymore. So when we took her off of that, her psychiatrist recommended another benzodiazepine. And she started to relapse, started to go back. She couldn't count anymore, couldn't remember her last name, and started moving again pretty bad. The rigidness returned. And it just became a desperate cry for us, like, we don't want to lose her now that we have her back again. And we learned of ECT. Her psychiatrist and told us about, it's through the University of Rochester. They have a link that is for the Bush-Francis Catatonia rating scale. And in that link, you can see catatonia is so complex. It has, I would say, dozens of symptoms. And I don't know how many exactly, maybe 23. I should learn. But each symptom comes with a video of people who are demonstrating what that symptom looks like. So her psychiatrist suggested, check out those videos, because he was just with my mom for the past year. He wasn't with her the first 8 years. And he said, check out these videos and see if she, is relatable, if you can see anything that's comparable. And I watched all the videos and I saw, wow, that's her. That's her. How was this overlooked? And she did have someone who said they know for sure that this is depression and that this is psychological and she just needs counseling. If it wasn't for that, we probably would have continued to pursue movement disorder. But we started to settle after that. And we just tried to help her get comfortable because we just figured this is it. So I documented everything. I have all the doctors, what they gave her, when they gave it to her. So now in my book, I have a chapter called medical summary or medical. It's like an explanation. You asked me, what is catatonia? And the idea is it's still so unexplored. So many people don't know, because just like I thought, it was a vegetable state. It was unresponsive. But there's so much more to it. And for my mom, she got it due to a head injury. Some people get it through autism. Some people get it through schizophrenia, bipolar. Some people just get it out of nowhere. I've seen articles, I've seen stories where people just out of the blue. So my biggest thing is I want to spread light into these dark areas and share that there's still so much more going on. I met this woman. She told me that she heard of my story. I had a little book reading, and after that, she said to me, my brother was catatonic 4 times. She said he lives with the state, like pretty much lives in a psych ward. And he had a comeback to Ativan. After a year, he didn't remember anything. A whole year went by. He was brought back with Ativan. He had the Ativan challenge where he responded well. So she said he had catatonia 4 times. And that's when I said, well, I think that he had catatonia 1 time. Bless you.
Thank you.
That was a silent sneeze. I said, I think he had catatonia 1 time, but they only treated him for it 4 times. And they wait until he's vegetable-like state where his organs are failing because there's no response. So you can tell, your body can say, I'm thirsty, but your brain can't tell your body, give me a drink of water. It doesn't communicate. So the organs start failing. So I said to her, go and ask about ECT.
Another shout out to one of our sponsors, Nevis Nutrition, which is a vitamin and supplement shop in Lamont. Owner Joe Bosco, dear friend of mine. Joe is super knowledgeable in nutrition, extremely knowledgeable in fitness. All the top athletes, weightlifters, bodybuilders, they go over there. He's really instrumental in help coaching our young athletes too. He's located in Lamont. I'll put the address in the description as well. Okay, so let me pause you. We're going to come back to this exact thing. Your mother went into a relapse, and so you went to ECT. Is that what happened?
Yeah, so we did.
And what is ECT?
We did try another medication, another benzo, Valium, and he has her on pretty much 10 milligrams 3 times a day. And it's good enough to where it slows her down enough to where she can function and talk and communicate. Any normal person would take a Valium, and for me, it would knock me out, but that's because her brain is moving so fast. It's got to slow it down just so she can communicate with us. That's how I see it. But what she's taking isn't strong enough. And catatonia is also a sleep disorder. So she experiences insomnia regularly. It's been such a struggle for her. So what ECT is electroconvulsive therapy. And you see movies like One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, who pretty much gave it a bad name. And I think about it. My sister actually told me about ECT years ago. We didn't have any answers, and we were still in the storm very deeply. And my sister said, maybe we should do ECT. I know someone who's done it, and it really worked for them. But she wanted to do it for depression. And I said, Mom's got trigeminal neuralgia, which is, they call it the suicide disease. They want to kill themselves because of the pain. And so I said to my sister, why on earth would we give her more electricity? Why would we shock therapy? Why would we put her in more pain? That sounded outrageous. And I, of course, dismissed it. And now I look back and I say, wow, I can't believe my sister thought of it. But we didn't pursue. No doctor mentioned it to us. If only we would have asked about it, but we didn't. So my sister is not Christian. We're not equally yoked. When I got baptized and I got saved, she didn't. And she's very big supporter of science, and that was a whole nother challenge in its own, is trying to make decisions for my mom when we're both so different. And I have a chapter dedicated in my book for her. I call it Yin and Yang. But in the end, we worked together because we weren't trying to win. We were trying to save my mom.
You had the same mission.
Yeah. But for ECT, the doctor suggested it to us. He said people who have catatonia do extremely well with ECT, that it could potentially cure her. However, with maintenance. So she might need ECT for the rest of her life. Time will tell. I'm here now because we just did her first session on Monday, and her second session was yesterday. Third one is tomorrow, 3 times a week. Excuse me. And they put her to sleep for it, and it's very scary. And she's really scared. But she wants to be better. She wants to make up for lost time. She just wants to live, which is so encouraging, because the past almost 9 years, she wanted to die, no matter what.
So take me through a little bit of when she came out of it to now. She's had highs and lows too, right? Because you brought her here to Pasta Sunday, and she seemed like she was all there.
Yeah. Well, she still had the Ativan in her system then.
And she hadn't had the allergic reaction to it.
Oh,
right?
yeah. She was still dealing with the allergic reaction, but she was dealing with it. The Ativan was just so wonderful. It was like she was here better than ever. She was herself again. And she had all these memories of her life before her injury. So, yeah, we were talking about her when she did come back, and how I had to tell her all these things of what happened in the past 9 years, because it was like she stepped off a time machine. She says to me, Rikki, can I call my mom? And I said, Mom, I got to call her first and give her a heads up.
Right.
Because we don't want any, accidental heart attacks. Because it was extremely shocking. My mom didn't even remember her own mother. She didn't know. She would say, I don't know who that lady is. She didn't want to talk to her. She didn't want to talk to anybody. She was scared. She had paranoia, which I learned now is that people who have catatonia go on this loop where they can't get out. So my mom was on a suicide loop, if you will. She just wanted to end her pain. She couldn't see outside of that. She thought everybody wanted to kill her. She had extreme paranoia, PTSD. We would try to show her light and beauty, and she couldn't see anything other than the storm. So when she came back and we brought her to your Thanksgiving, she really enjoyed herself. But now if you ask her to this day, did she have a good time? She would say she doesn't remember. So there's a movie, 50 First Dates, with Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler.
Yeah, that's a really good movie.
Yeah, and I just thought there's no way that would ever happen. It's fake. It's totally outrageous. Well, that's my mom now. So we used to think that she was forgetting, that she just didn't remember things. But now we understand that when there's more than one thing happening at the same time, it's too overwhelming for her. She goes into a fight or flight, so she won't record. So her brain is not recording. It's not that it's not remembering, it's just never recording. So then we could have a Thanksgiving today. She'll have a great time, experience all the emotions along with it. And then the next day, we can do it all over again. And she will experience it all over for the first time.
So the ECT just started, so you don't know. You haven't seen results yet, right?
Well, I've been seeing results actually since the first one. I reached out to the Catatonia Foundation. This woman there, she's the president. We spoke for an hour the day before my mom's ECT procedure, and she gave me a heads up. She said it might take her some time. She might not start seeing results until maybe 8 or 9 procedures. And she said she might get worse before she gets better. Trust the process. Hang in there. Keep going. And that was very encouraging to me because I don't know what to expect. And the last thing I want is my mom to not be able to live on her own or to be able to make her own decisions, take care of herself. So after the first treatment, I'm thinking, okay, am I going to have to help her use the bathroom? Am I going to have to help her get dressed? I have no idea what to expect. But she did so well. The first day, she slept the whole day. You know, she's taking basically Valium is sleeping medication, you know.
May I ask, what are they doing with ECT? What is the procedure exactly?
Yeah, so it's electroconvulsive therapy. It's electroshock therapy to the brain.
So they knock you out before they do it?
Yes, she goes to sleep and they do it. And
what do they put probes on your head?
I believe so.
Okay.
I think maybe 2.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. All I know is that people who have catatonia is the most effective treatment next to Ativan. And she can't take Ativan, so this is the next treatment. And this will then potentially take away the other medications that she's taking. This will be that form of treatment that will hopefully help her.
The Ativan has the side effect of she's allergic to it, and the reaction from the allergy is worse than the benefit of the Ativan?
Well, no. In my opinion, I think it would be nice to just have her deal with it so she can have the Ativan. But yeah, her rash, she got hives all over her body, and it just kept spreading and spreading. And her restlessness, she couldn't rest. She couldn't sleep.
Is that because of the hives? Or
I don't know,
okay.
But it didn't work. And ECT, I'm really hoping for the best. And I reached out to other people. I read articles. I pretty much did everything I could to learn about it. So now I decided I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to study. I've been studying psychology all these years, so I might as well attribute it to a degree, become a subject matter expert in catatonia. I want to be able to teach people about catatonia. I want to know it inside and out. So that's my goal.
And I'm always looking at the meaning of things. And meaning is we could create meaning, right? It's suffering. When I said, is it a blessing? It can be if we make it so, right? Mm-hmm. So with your mother, is the whole purpose of the mission or the outcome that she was saved, that God came to her, Jesus came to her in her dream, and like that was the whole thing. And I'm going to bring you back, and you'll be mine permanently, and then whatever happens after that. Maybe that was the flashpoint in the meaning of the whole thing. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah. I have actually showed her that video of her dream, and she doesn't remember it. She talks about God all the time now, where she didn't before. She's always talking. She's always praying to God all day. And it's like she's just has this really intimate relationship with him that she didn't have before. Another fascinating thing is she smoked a pack of cigarettes a day for as long as I could remember. And then when she came back, she wasn't smoking for several days. And I was telling the doctor to give her nicotine patches because I believed that she was going through withdrawal, but her body didn't know how to tell her that that's what's happening. And she said, I don't want to smoke anymore. And she never started again. It's been 4 months. So that's pretty miraculous that she would just stop just like that. And before my mom had her injury, we were very close. She was my best friend, my confidant.
Wow.
And I would call her, I would say, hello, mother. And she would say, hello, daughter. And then in her injury, I would call her and I would say, hello, mother. And she would say, hi, like question.
Yeah.
And I would say, that's not my mother. Well, then after she came back, I just did it. I called her. I said, hello, mother. And she said, hello, daughter. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I was like, there she is. That's her. So I'm just really praying that the ECT, it's so funny because the doctor there, he's a psychiatrist there who's performing the ECT at the hospital. He said, and this is not her current psychiatrist, this is someone who doesn't know her and who just read her history. But he said to her, I just want you to know that this is not going to help your memory. And she remembered that. She said, he said it's not going to help my memory at all. And I said, well, time will tell. He works with a lot of different kinds of people with different, symptoms and situations. And I said, watch you be the only one that it actually helps with the memory. And she says that when she comes out of her anesthesia, she wakes up and she's wide awake. And all the nurses said, you're the only one that wakes up wide awake, ready to go. I said, see, Mom, it's working for you because your condition, it works.
So I want to take a little side street here,
Yeah.
okay? And this is because my second book is coming out, The Gift of Grief. And I cover this part in my book about preparation for death. And I say an example, if your parent is 95 years old and then they die and you're shocked and you're heartbroken and you're in shock, what are you thinking? They're 95 years old. They are at the end of the game, right? So when your mother was going through this process to her bottom, were you preparing yourself or were you avoiding it?
No, I felt like I buried my mom years ago. She didn't remember who she was. And I would tell her things. She had no idea what I was talking about. A few months before her comeback, her sister was in hospice. She had cancer. And I took her to go and see her. And she took her sister's hand and she said, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, but I'm sorry this is happening to you. And it was so devastating for all of us to witness. Her sister was just so grateful that she got to see her sister, even though she didn't remember her. It was just heartbreaking. And then when my mom came back, I said, Mom, your sister passed away. Oh, she was bawling her eyes out. She was wailing. No. She never got to say goodbye. And then I had to tell her about all those other people who passed away in the past 9 years. She didn't get a break in between. She had to live through all of it all at once.
Right.
But I buried my mom so long ago. I used to call my mom and tell her the first thing she would be the first person I would call. She'd be the first person I would tell whatever it was. And we were so close. And then just like that, it wasn't her anymore. I was just taking care of this person. But people would tell me, you're such a good caregiver. You really do so much for her. And I would always say the same thing. I'm my mother's daughter. She would do the same for me. And I stand by that. I was her voice when she couldn't be a voice, and I still am. So, but yeah, as it comes for the final day, my sister, she's just been so great about it all. She's been there. I moved out of the state and just been dealing with it from over there, far, far away. And I still do virtual calls with the doctors. I still have her medications delivered. I still do her medication with her weekly, and we make it work. We have the cleaning lady, caregivers, and everything. And we did everything that we possibly could to keep her home. And then when they picked her up, the ambulance picked her up, they actually filed an elder abuse report because of the way they found her. She was passed out, and she might have been passed out for a whole day. And we just had no idea that it was going to come down to that, because we communicated with her every day. We were like, okay, we'll talk to you later. And then there was that day when we weren't able to talk to her anymore, and she was in the hospital. I drove all the way down. I drove 7 hours. And on my drive down, I called the nurse. I said, I think she's catatonic. And that was it. When I got to the hospital, 7 hours later, I had told the nurse, I said, did you tell the doctor that I think she's catatonic? And that's when she said, no, she's not. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, then I don't know what else it could be. And my sister and I, we weren't like looking up memorial places, or funeral homes. We weren't looking up anything like that. We were considering where would we bury her, but we were just kind of waiting until that time, approach that when that time comes.
But it was swirling around in your head.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think I was going to go home without burying my mom. I didn't think she was going to make it out of that hospital. There's no doubt.
Great. That's great. That's the craziest part of the story. You're in the back of your mind, you're programming what to do when she's gone. And then all of a sudden she's all there, right? That was crazy.
Yeah.
I want to make a little mention about
it's the craziest thing.
You and your sister, because I met your sister because you guys bought a place for your mom, which I was involved in. And you and your sister you're driven to take care of your mom. You guys are a dynamic duo when that comes. And I'm not saying you agree on everything, but you guys are determined to get things done for her. It was inspiring to me.
Yes,
to watch
thank
that.
you. Thank you. It really did pull us together and made us a lot stronger. We have a new respect for each other that we didn't have before. We had to pull each other up, and gosh, it was just such a long, long road of heartache and pain that we both carried. And we just had to brush it off and smile and carry on every day, because life goes on and the world doesn't wait for you. You just have to keep going.
Part of your mom's journey is the completion of her legacy, because everything that's happened to her did bring you and your sister together as teammates. And it's like, I envision you guys as like you're on the battlefield together and you're getting injured together, but you're arm in arm and you're limping through the battlefield together.
That's how it felt, actually, when my mom came back and my sister and I were standing there next to each other, side by side. It was so beautiful that I wasn't the only one to experience her comeback, or my sister wasn't the only one, that we were both there witnessing this miracle.
And there are no two people on planet Earth that would reap more joy in that moment than you two. You know what I mean? You were there.
I do talk about that because I have friends who lost their family members, their loved ones, to dementia, Alzheimer's, and they forget who they are, and they don't get their loved one come back. I look at that and I have so much gratitude that we got her back. There were so many times my sister and I were like, okay, is this it? Is mom going into the nursing home? Towards the end, we were like, okay, she's not going to be able to live on her own anymore. It's not safe. And that's when the last ambulance pickup, he filed a elder's abuse. And we're like, oh no, we don't want the state to take over my mom. That was our biggest fear, is not having control and power over my mom. And if we would have, because my mom went to the nursing home. So she lived with Josh and I. She lived with us for the first year because my mom couldn't live on her own anymore. She was forgetting everything was, she would put pot holders in the oven with her food. She would leave the tub running, forget that she has water coming out. She would lock herself going to check her mailbox. Small things like that. And it showed us that she wasn't capable of living on her own. So she moved in with us. And with her being so suicidal, I couldn't go home every day and wonder, is this the day I'm going to find my mom? And after a year, she had her own bedroom. We had 4 bedrooms in that house, and she had her own living room. She had everything. We cooked 3 meals a day. It was so great. And for us, it was wonderful because we can take care of her. We can monitor her and we have control. But my mom was just so much in pain. She just wanted to end her pain, and she just wanted to end it all. So eventually she went into a nursing home. Oh my gosh, I felt so terrible. I just felt like I did the worst thing in the world, put my mom into a nursing home. And she's not even 60 years old yet. Well, she's 60 now, but at the time, I'm like, this is wrong. She shouldn't be living in a nursing home with all these old people. But that's where she went. And then we wound up getting her that home that you helped us with. And we just maintained it all that time.
I have to ask this. The book is finished and you're going through all the editing and processing to get the book released. What do you want the message or messages of the book to be? What are you trying to get across to people?
My biggest thing is hope, is keep the faith, even though it's dark and you can't see. For us, she came back. I don't think that's going to happen for everyone. I don't think everyone's going to get a miracle. But how would you know if you don't keep trying? If you give up, then how would you know? If my mom would have gave up, she wouldn't have been here now. She wouldn't have had that comeback. If we would have sent her to a nursing home and gave up on her, she never would have came back to us because she wouldn't have gone through that Ativan challenge. It never would have happened. My main message is I want people to have hope. Oh, it's so funny. I said to my mom, she has a really big sense of humor. She's really funny. And I didn't know this up until recently.
That she was funny?
Yeah. Well, I mean, she might have been before, but now she hasn't smiled. I'm telling you, she was in so much pain. She hasn't smiled or laughed or said a joke in 9 years. And now she's just so funny. She's got me cracking up. I said, Mom, I want to interview you for this book. And I want to have people hear it from you. I've been your voice all this time, but I want them to hear it from your words. And I said, what do you tell people who want to give up? What do you say to those people who don't see any light and they're living in so much pain? And she goes, well, Rikki, you're not going to like what I have to say. I said, Mom, just what is it? She said, well, I think they should do it. They should end their pain and they should find a way that works for them and just do it. And I was like, Mom, we can't use that. That's not going in the book. She goes, I told you weren't going to like it. My mom's a big supporter of assisted suicide. She wants to support those who are in so much pain. And I guess she's able to say it because she's lived it and she knows. There's something about it. It's just the deepest suffering you can imagine. A prisoner in your own body.
I have mixed feelings about that. The yin and yang for me is, if I do that, does that displease my Lord? Mm-hmm. But then the flip side is, I should be able to take myself out. I don't want to have dementia. I don't want to be a burden to anybody. And I should have the choice to take myself out. It's my life, right? But then am I displeasing my God by doing so?
Right.
So those are my two conflicts with that.
I love watching interrogation videos or listening to investigators and sergeants and lieutenants, things like that. And I remember listening to this one lieutenant from Las Vegas. He worked there for maybe 10 or 20 years, something very big. And he says that one of the biggest things that he would come across is people want to kill themselves, but they don't because they fear God. And they wind up doing something where they get the police to do it for them. And maybe they pulling something out of their pocket, but it's a burrito,
Right.
And then the police officer is one who winds up having to live with that grief and mortified. But the person didn't want to do it themselves. The fact is, my mom didn't do it. And she saw so much life in my niece and nephew, my sister's kids. And she had them. And they gave her the spark that she needed when she needed it. And I don't know if she would have done it without them. We gave her a little teacup Yorkie maybe 6 years ago now. 5-6 years, gosh, 2020. Can you believe it's been 6 years now? Yeah. And so we gave her this dog, and originally it was so she's not lonely. It gave her a sense of responsibility, a sense of freedom and companionship. So she had that dog. She had the grandkids. I think those were her number one drivers. My sister and I, we would beg her, please don't do it. We love you. What can we do? I don't think that mattered. It was the kids and the dog that got her through it. But in my book, I talk about, because I want the caretakers to know that they have to take care of themselves. I brushed myself under the rug for a very long time. I didn't want my mom to see me looking good when she looked terrible. So I hid a lot of joy that occurred in my life, accomplishments that I would have, I wouldn't share with her. Or I did a lot of training and a lot of performing, a lot of beautiful things that have occurred in the past 9 years, but it was a secret because I was helping her. But I would do those things to survive. And I want to be able to teach people who read the book that you can survive, you can get through the storm, but you have to have a floaty, you have to have some driftwood, sometimes, and you grab onto those things that give you peace and happiness, and you just do the best that you can every day, and just keep showing up. So my biggest thing I want to get across in the book is I want to teach people about catatonia, first of all. I can't imagine how many people are misdiagnosed. And I want to be able to just let people know to keep the faith, even in the dark, because God is there. He was there the whole time.
I want to tell you a few things that I picked up, and I didn't read the book. I just know we've talked about it, and I will read it. These are the things I got out of it, and I did put don't give up, but I also put do your research. And because doctors can be wrong, and doctors only know what they know, right? So you could actually do enough research where you have a more well-rounded opinion of something than they do, because they've been taught one way to do things, and there are other ways to do things. That's why we have holistic ways to treat things, right? They're not really taught about nutrition. I'm not bashing doctors. I'm just saying it doesn't hurt you to do your own research. When they prescribe a medication, it doesn't hurt you to research the medication and the possible side effects just to be prepared, right? So those were some of the messages I get out of the book. This is my book, How to Be a Warrior of Light in a Dark World. It's available on Amazon. It's about mindset and many other things. It's kind of a handbook on life. I have my second book coming called The Gift of Grief. That's at the editor right now, and that will be published probably within a month or two. So thank you all for joining the Warrior Podcast. Thank you to our sponsors. We'll see you at our next show. So I just wanted to give some special credit to you and Josh. One of the things you guys do, it's one of your superpowers, is you love to bring people together. And you're great entertainers, and you like to make introductions from friend to friend because you see there's going to be some benefit here, right? And you've done that with me so many times. Jim Rabb, you introduced me to him, and then that in turn turned out to be a great friendship where he's brought many people onto the podcast, super interesting people. I'll mention you had the Dave party because where you live in Trout Lake, there's a bunch of Daves, and you just said we're having a dinner party and nobody knew, but it was all Daves, right? And their spouses.
The holiday.
Yeah, that was hilarious. You guys, your hospitality is off the charts. And then you guys also brought in Kathy, Josh's mom. She's been a wild and crazy character in all of our lives. She's something too.
Yeah, she's really funny too. And
I just wanted to thank you for all that stuff. You guys have been really good friends. We hit it off right away. You know, we have similar interests. We like sports, shooting and stuff like that. And when I meet you the first time at a house and you're like, oh, this would make a great gun room here. And you pull your pistol out and show me, I'm like, uh-oh, we're going to get along really good. So, yeah. Anyway, my friend, we covered a lot of ground. Do you want to add anything to where we're at right now?
No, I appreciate the time. I appreciate all your efforts and spreading awareness. And I just appreciate you and letting me use your platform to share the story.
My pleasure.
I've been really private about it because, of course, my mom didn't want to tell anybody about her pain and her suffering. Now, of course, she wants to share it because she wants to help people.
Yeah.
I appreciate the platform and you letting me use your time, and your fabulous editor. Shout out to the editor.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I want to say this in conclusion, that the highest and best purpose for a child and a parent is for the child to take care of that parent and when they're really in need near the end of days, and that doesn't always happen. So that's a tribute to your mother's job as a mother, right? Because you and your sister have that in you. So that's pretty cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. For our future, I am really hoping that the ACT is going to get her in a place that she's going to be comfortable enough to travel. And I want to take her to see the world, make up for the lost time. And just enjoy time with my mom because it's a gift. So every day is a gift.
That's right.
And tomorrow's not promised for any of us.
Right. That's why they call the now the present, right?
Yeah. And that's one thing it's really taught me this whole journey is every day is precious, and how you spend your time, who you have involved in your circle, it's a choice. You can choose better for yourself.
Yeah. Somebody said, and I don't remember who, but it makes sense. You are the average of the 5 closest people to you. Yeah. And I always thought that's interesting.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's a good thing because I got a good circle and you're in my circle.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I'm honored for that.
Well, thank you so much, Frank.
All right, my dear friend. Thank you very much for coming on the Warrior Podcast. We will have another one after the book.
Yes.
You and I can go deep on other things too.
Yes.
That's for another time.
And then we could follow up.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Warrior Podcast. Thank you to my friend Rikki. Remember, there's a warrior inside us all, and we'll see you at our next show.